Murillo. What happens in Vegas?
What happens in Vegas? I'll tell you what's happening. Well, the reason I'm here is we have an event. It's a mixer. Now, our brand, Chicano Hollywood, we're expanding out, and our number one mission is to train and build underneath the Latino Chicano community of filmmakers, content creators. So we've been existing for a couple of years. So right now, this summer, we kind of felt there was a direction to start meeting with people that follow us, people that from other places. So we're doing a summer tour. Vegas is part of that tour. It's the second stop we're doing. We were in San Diego last week. Now we're going to be meeting tonight with filmmakers, with the Nevada Film Commission, with some state representatives and some other local, potential partners. And we're having a quiet, private meeting, and we're going to just be talking film opportunities for Chicanos and for Latinos. That's what our mission is. So it should be fun. So what happens in Vegas? Hopefully people find out about it.
Awesome. When you think of Las Vegas, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
It's funny, when I think of Las Vegas, it's hilarious because we were driving over here from LA, and I told my wife, I said, remember when we used to come to Vegas on our trips to wherever else? We'd stop at Cane's Chicken. That was our main thing right there. I think it's on Las Vegas Boulevard, way on the outside past the strip. And that was our main stop. But now there's Cane's all over the place. So we started laughing how that was such a big deal. So I can't say I'm a big gambler. I don't do that too much. I don't go to shows. It'd be great to do that. But what I like to do in Vegas is that it's a really cool food scene. So that's important to me. So to me, what I love when I come is like, okay, what restaurants are we looking up? So we get on Instagram, we get on, on different food places and stuff like, okay, where can we go? So last night we had a really good Italian restaurant. Today we had a really good breakfast restaurant, so it's a food scene here for me.
Can you remember how many times you've come to Las Vegas?
Oh man, since I was a kid, my two abuelas from my mom's side and my dad's side, they loved coming to Vegas. So they would get a Greyhound and they would take me and usually always took me and a cousin or a couple cousins or whatever. So since I was a kid, this is back in the 70s, I've probably been to Vegas, if I were to try to estimate, probably 200-300 times. Probably, because you're talking over a lifespan of 57 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens to a lot of people. They've traveled a lot, but they always somehow come back to Vegas.
Yeah. You get a lot of people here now.
How would you compare this city to other cities you've lived in, or
Well, what's interesting about Vegas is, so we used to live in Hawaii, so there's a really solid Hawaiian presence here. I remember even when we lived in Hawaii, there were like direct flights to Vegas, and the Hawaiians, the Islanders, they love Vegas, right? So when you talk, think about what makes Vegas stand alone out is not just the gambling, obviously the tourism, the shows. It's a working town. It's got opportunities, and if they're coming to Vegas to make money, they can do it. If they're coming to Vegas just to get a good job, it can happen here. And then if they're coming just to retire and live in this heat, you can do that too. People love this kind of heat. I mean, this is that hot, dry heat, and I know a lot of people, they just love the weather. So to me, Vegas, as unique as it is already with the things that are obvious, it's like when I lived on Oahu, we didn't always go to Waikiki. That's a tourist spot, but we hung out and lived on the outsides of it. Same thing here. You could live in Vegas and not really be plugged into the gambling industry or that, You're going to know someone that is, but you can actually have other industries, and there's a lot of growing tech industries, other, film. That's why I'm here. The Hollywood is wanting to make this a Hollywood 2.0. So there's a lot of opportunities here,
All right. So after so many visits, what is the craziest thing that you have seen in this city?
I'll tell you the craziest thing. When I first got into the film industry, I had a couple good friends. We got a job working for a guy named Red Foo, who was, there's a group called LMFAO, right? And he, real popular hip hop artist. And so we're doing the BTS, behind the scenes for him. So we were staying at I think it's the Wynn and the Encore, right? Those two hotels, beautiful hotels. We're staying over there, and we were doing. Now, understand, Mike, the context. I was a pastor for 23 years. So you're talking pounding a pulpit for 23 years. 6 months later, I'm now doing behind the scenes camera work for this hip hop artist that he's DJing, and it's like 3 or 4 in the morning. Everyone's drunk. It's like debauchery. They're nude. They're doing things. I mean, it was crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was pounding a pulpit 6 months ago. Now look at where I'm at. So to me, that was like, like I said, I don't go to those things unless I'm working. I was working for this particular situation. And to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, because of what I saw. So yeah, that was a crazy thing for me,
All right. So, this might seem like a repetitive question, but I have it in the list.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you like about Las Vegas? And the other side of the coin, what don't you like about Las Vegas?
Mm-hmm. Got it. So the thing about Vegas, like I said earlier, it's, I love the food scene. It's great. And I love the lights too. Like last night we went to the Sphere. I've never seen it, in person. So we're like driving around it. I got off, we made a little video on it, so, I love the look. I love the strip look. I love the lights. I love the history. You go into old Vegas, right? And then that's where I was telling my family, I said, look, this new part is all corporations. But the old Vegas is the one that's where the Rat Pack was. That's where the Mafia, the Godfather, that's where they controlled that, right? And I could be wrong. I'm just going by what I see on TV. So they controlled all the old parts. So I love the old part. I love those old museums, Again, what don't I like about Vegas? I'll tell you, and I feel bad because I'm from California, but you guys are getting a lot of people moving here, and your traffic is terrible. It's like if I'm the 405 in LA, I'm like bumper to bumper. And I know, I don't know if you're doing a housing crisis, but what happens is when people are selling over there and they're buying cash houses over here, the locals can't afford it. All of a sudden the skyrocket and all that. So yeah, there's those kind of things, which, on behalf of California, I apologize to Vegas, but you got a pretty city. It is what it is.
Yeah, no, recently I read that, there's so much construction since the year 2000 here in Las Vegas. In fact, there is a very interesting satellite time-lapse. You can see how it grows.
Yeah.
And they're estimating that if they continue in this rhythm, they're going to run out of land in like 7-8 years.
Oh, man, and water.
And water, too.
People don't realize this takes water.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I saw a house for sale. I'm driving over, like, man, we should move over here.
Yeah,
so I'm going to be part of that too,
Yeah,
So.
well, don't blame you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so we're done with the Las Vegas segment, and so tell me a story. But I'm very interested about going all the way back to your earliest childhood memories and the basics, where you grew up, where were you born, and yes.
Okay. So I was family's from Mexico. My mom and her side of the family from Mexicali and Guerrero. My biological father, I say it that way because I didn't know him that well. His side is from Zacatecas, right? So, but I didn't know him that well. But my grandfather from my mom's side, everybody migrated up. They cruzaron la línea, and however they did it. I don't know. But my grandfather migrated throughout the U.S. Working, la cosecha, and they finally settled in San Jose. So we're up in San Jose. That's where my grandfather. By this time, he had my tío, my tía, and then my mom. And he's like, okay, I can't be pulling the kids all over the nation. He went as far as Michigan and as far as Colorado, and so he finally in San Jose he became a foreman in the cherry orchards, right? The San Jose, this is before the Silicon Valley, right? All those silicon companies were orchards. So my grandfather actually was a foreman for an orchard called the Monferino Ranches, and he, all the cherries and whatever, strawberries, all that stuff. And so it was an interesting time. I tell people I can never claim I worked in the fields. I never did. But I was there as a little kid, and because my grandpa was the boss. So me and my older brother would jump in his truck. We'd go to work with him, and especially when the cosecha was happening, when the harvest of cherries was happening, me and my brother would just climb trees, eat cherries, and just throw them at each other. And but all the guys were working, and then after, I love the feelings I have, because I remember after they would once in a while they get a chivo and they, you know, and when they would get a goat, right? I would, me and my, you know, they would tie it up. So me and my older brother and then my two cousins, we'd all play with it, right? And they'd call it our pet. This is our pet Billy. This is Billy Goat. And then next thing you know, my tío Rodolfo would come in and he'd sharpen the knife up. And I remember the first time it happened, we're like, what is he doing? You know, he's sharpening the knife. Then he gets our pet, because we thought it was going to be our pet. And he puts it on this big old slab and ties it up, you know, and he's so rough with our pet. And poor Billy's like, rah, 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 and then he leans it over the table. The head is like right this. He pulls out his knife and we were like, oh my, what? He just cut our pet's throat, you know, and we're freaking out. We weren't crying, you know, but we were like, oh my gosh, freaking out. And the sangre, you know, the blood was dripping. He's bleeding it, right? That's what you do. And I remember how emotional we were at the time, pero a few hours later, I estamos comiendo tacos de tripa, right? We're just, you know, chivo, we're eating tacos. So, you know, that was my childhood, right? They all worked hard. Everybody worked hard. Their hands, I remember my grandfather's hands were calloused, you know, because everybody worked hard. They taught us to work hard. But they always partied hard too. You know, my grandfather had a saying, dinero hay, you know. You know, that's not the best thing, because sometimes no hay dinero, or there is dinero, but it's supposed to pay the mortgage or pay the rent. So, vamos, you know, and they would always have parties, you know, and you know, como Latinos, Mexicanos, right? I'm not going to put us on everybody, pero como Mexicanos, the rite of passage for kids was a tío saying, come here, take a drink. Putting a can of Coors in our, or Budweiser in our hand, and we'd, you know, take a drink. And you know, I remember that first happened to me when I was like in third grade or something like that. My tío Chuy, he'd go and he'd, tómalo, be a man. And so, you know, so that was it. I had the typical, and I hate to say it this way, but you know, very common upbringing with raza, you know, with the Chicano community, with Mexicano community, where we, you know, I was more Chicano, where born and raised here. English was my primary language. My TV shows weren't El Chavo de Ocho; they were more the Brady Bunch, you know, Happy Days, you know. So I was raised more of that, you know. I am semi-bilingual, you know. My grandmother, she lived with us as I was growing up, so for sure I know all the cuss words of Spanish. Todo. I mean, she called us everything in the book, so I know all the cuss words. But I am bilingual. But our culturally upbringing was. You know, very, very Mexicano. Then it grew more Chicano. Where my stepdad, when he came in the picture, he was a lowrider, right? He would get an old car and carry it out to be a cool lowrider. And so we always, when my mom, this is amazing. She was an amazing lady. She bought our first house for like $16,000 back in 1974. And when she retired, she sold it for like over $1 million. Because of the Silicon Valley, because of Google, because of all those people coming in. And, you know, anybody in our barrio that were homeowners, they freaking did good. Mrs. Gonzalez, I mean, we know them, right? They sold homes and they ditched out there. Some went back to Mexico, some went to Modesto, Central Valley. And my tío, he owned like 13 homes, right? He would buy homes and do it. So out of our family, because of that upbringing, we had professionals, we had real estate investors. My Nino, you know, which is my mom's younger brother, he retired as a battalion chief of the fire department for San Jose. So he was the third highest ranking in the fire department. My primos were detectives, SWAT, they were police. My sister still works for the San Jose PD. And we had politicians. I had another second primo tío, we call him tío. He was assistant to the city manager. So everybody that came out of the rancho, they all came out of the rancho. There was a good grip that became professionals. Then there was the prisoners, right? So then there was the gang members. I tell people, you know, we're raising the body of a single mom. You know, my real dad, he was an alcoholic, he was a wino. He was killed, right? He got run over by a train because he was drunk. I didn't know him that well. He didn't die. He lost his leg, right? And but we saw him when I was 12 years old. in a halfway house, and I didn't know the man, so I didn't really connect with him. My older brother connected with him a little bit more. He knew him more than I did, but he was out of our life. But then my stepdad, he was a he was a lowrider. He was a gang member. He was dealing drugs. He actually was one of the main guys that started a barrio called Horseshoe in San Jose, right? And so he was doing all that type of life. So we had a combination. After he got killed, he was killed because of the agencies at work, right? Now my mom had 5 kids to raise, 3 boys and 2 twin girls. So me and all of us, we got caught up. My older brother, I tell people he was a really good gang member, good cholo, good homie. My younger brother was even better, right? He was a gang member. Then he became a lifer, a prison, right? he did life in prison. I was in between. I tried it. I wasn't very good at it. It wasn't my thing, right? I was a lowrider. I had a 53 Chevy. I cruised King and Story. I was a lowrider, right? But I wasn't a cholo. I wasn't a homeboy. It wasn't my thing, right? I had my friends, and we did our thing. It's cool. There was a song with Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney where Michael Jackson says, "I'm a lover, not a fighter," right? So I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm more that way, So we, that was the lifestyle. So, but thank God though, as our upbringing was happening in San Jose, I can make a whole legacy TV series out of this, because we had the professionals and we had the prisoners. We had them both, and then over the course of time, everything changed. I gave my life to the Lord, and I became a pastor. So then for the next 23 years after I got out of high school, after I got kicked out of high school, put it that way. That's when I said, okay, I'm screwing my life up. 23 years I served the Lord in ministry. I preached. I did a lot of street outreaches. I went all over the world preaching. I preached in front of big crowds. This is all in the 90s. And I did that for 23 years. And then back in 2008, we really, some things happened, but we felt this direction change, and really felt like we're supposed to go to Hollywood. So 16 years ago, following, the guidance from the Lord, we went to Hollywood, and been there since the last 16 years. I didn't know anything about it. Like I said, 6 months later, I'm in Las Vegas at the Encore, and I'm, around all this crazy stuff. But with God's grace, because of that, we have grown, and as a producer, I'm a producer. I do what's called line producing. And I'm, people give me a script. I just broke down the script the other day for an independent filmmaker. And, what I do is I look at the script, chop it all up. This is what it's going to take to shoot this thing. This is your budget. This is what you need. I break it all down, props, everything like that. And because of all that experience, we launched into, I also love to write, so I'm a writer. And we launched into Chicano Hollywood. So this has been around for like 3 years now, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, so producer, actor, writer, how, when you made that decision to become a filmmaker, what was your thought process? Because there is so many different departments. Where did you start first?
Yeah. Okay, I'll start with that. So right around 2008, when we were, I was feeling this direction, right, to come to Hollywood. I started. What happened was the economy tanked. I was in Sacramento. I had this inner city church, beautiful church. I had pimps, prostitutes. I had poor people. I had Latino, Black, Asian, and about 300. They loved me. I loved them. It was a beautiful church. Pero we had just got into a big building, and the economy tanks. The 2008 real estate crash, right? And there was no more money, so I had to move out of that building. And it was terrible. I had to close the church down. One of the hardest things that's ever happened to me is to close that church down. All my life since I was 18 was ministry, pastoring. I love helping people. It's just a thing in me to help people get to a new level. And by this time now, I'm unemployed. We lost our house, right? I owned a house. I lost it in that first wave of foreclosures. I lost it. Now we're in a rental, and I'm trying to figure out, how to survive, how to put food on the table. The year before that, my 3 kids were scouted and they were scouted by a cattle call casting, right? They were just looking for child actors. So because of that, would get emails from a company called Casting Networks. You know, and I'd get all the emails, all the breakdowns, and if I saw something that my kids might want to audition for, I would take them to LA. You know, and we're just doing that just for them for fun. But now, fast forward, I lose everything. I'm unemployed. I didn't know what to do. I got to find money for my family. I saw this casting come through for a movie, Christmas movie called Four Christmases. It starred Vince Vaughn, Reese Witherspoon, and Robert Duvall, right? And I'm like, you know, it was like 2 or 3 days of work where they needed like 400 background for an airport scene. And I said, man, I'm gonna take this. I submitted and I got it, right? So just one of 400 people. So now I'm at this a part of the San Francisco airport that they rented to use. And there's like just 400 of us. While I was there, in my mind, I'm just here to make a couple bucks. They're going to pay me, yada, yada. You know, not very much, but they're going to pay me. But I saw this, I remember standing right next to the crafty table. I saw the second, she stood up on a table, little Latina girl too. I wish I got to look her up. I could probably look her up on IMDb, but Latina lady, she jumped on the table and she starts wrangling us, right? Meaning, okay guys, these are instructions, you know, do this, you know, we're going to divide you up. When I saw her do that, I just felt something inside. This is what I'm calling you to do now. And I looked up, I said, what? And just this feeling came on me. This is what I'm telling you to do now. And I'm like, no way, man. I'm a Pentecostal pastor. We preach against going to movies. We preach against, I don't know nothing about this stuff. I'm already crossing the line by being on this set. And, you know, I just shook it off, but it just wouldn't leave me. I remember driving home those couple days for being on set. All I had was this sense of, this is your calling, this is your calling. And I was like, oh my gosh. And because I made a profile on Casting Networks, now I see other things that are coming on, and I just would submit them and I would get them, right? So I've done as an actor, I was lead in a couple of independent movies that were shot up in Northern California. Some that I don't even tell people about because they would freak out on what I did, you know. But but I was, you know, it was coming out great. You know, I'd go to auditions and there was like 4 or 5 guys that looked like me, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I go up there and do my thing, and I would get, you know, commercials and stuff like that. So now I'm like making a couple of bucks. Like, okay, I could do this, but I just felt this sense of like I'm supposed to move to LA. And man, that was a crazy thing because now like I'm barely an actor. The economy is still kind of shaky. This is by now it's 2009, the summer of 2009. My son just graduated high school. He's going to college in Vanguard University in Orange County. And I just have my 2 daughters and my wife. And we're like, well, what are we going to do here? We have nothing in Sacramento. And we both felt like we're supposed to move. So we moved to a town called Culver City. And even that was a whole miracle. Because I didn't have any money. I got there with like maybe $2,400. That's it. And if you're from LA, even back then, $2,400 is dinner. You know, I mean, so we got out there and it was by faith. We got a hotel right off of Sepulveda Boulevard, little nasty hotel. Rented it for a week. I said, okay, let's try to find a place to live. We're looking, you know, this is before internet, right? So we're Craigslist. Well, we had Craigslist, right? And but there was really nothing big like Zillow, nothing like that. We're going Craigslist and newspaper, and we're looking and looking, and I'm making phone calls, and man, a week goes by, and we couldn't find a place. We're on a Sunday now, and I'm like, okay, I looked at my wife and said, I'm sorry, I screwed up. I heard wrong, maybe. But we're in a mess now because, you know, I only had a little bit of money left. And my brother, he was pastoring in Salt Lake City, and he's calling me saying, dude, just come over here. Just come, you know, and he has a big house in Salt Lake City. The basement's all built out, and he's like, you can have the basement, you know, and help me with my ministry, you know. So it would have just been a simple geographical change, and we'd be fine. And so I told my wife, I said, let's just go to Salt Lake, you know. So we went to a church, and it was called Expressions 58. Hoping, I told God, you know, and met at this little park, and I told, okay, God, if there's someone here that could just give me a message, because I don't know what to do, and I was broken, right? And I'm like, midlife crisis. And we went to that church. They're meeting at a park. They were just starting. They have no building or nothing, but we went to church and nothing. We went there. We got up. No one said nothing. I don't know what I was hoping for, but I just wanted some kind of sign, right? Something. And nothing. And so We went to Chipotle to get lunch right there in Culver City, right where the movie theater is and all the little restaurants. And we're sitting in Chipotle, and I'm texting my brother, hey man, I might show up tonight. And I'm telling my wife, I said, let's just go. I don't know what else to do. I have my 2 daughters there, and we're trying to like play it off. Like, hey, it's all good, guys. Hey, we might go to Salt Lake, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they see their cousins, so trying to pump it up. And I had a sense of failure. Like, what am I supposed to do? So we finished our lunch, and we're walking, but I noticed 2 guys that were there. And they were from the church. They went to the church too. So as we got up and finished eating, we walked towards our parking lot. Our parking spot is a garage, big garage by the Bank of America, and they were behind us. So they parked there too, right? So as we got behind the alley there to go into the parking garage, I turned around and I said, hey guys, you guys were at the church this morning, right? And they're like, oh yeah, we were there. I think I saw you. Because there's only like a handful of people. And I said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you pray for us? Because I just need to hear something from God. And the guy goes, oh, I'm not very good at it, but I'll try. So we circled up, we prayed, and the guy tells me this. He goes, hey man, I got to tell you something. I could be wrong. I'm sorry, but I feel like God is saying, don't leave. He has a place for you to live. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, thank you. That's all I need to know. We went up to the parking garage. And we were already packed. We were ready to drive to Salt Lake. We went up to the parking garage and we waited. Like, now what? What am I supposed to do? Go get another hotel? What do I do? And my phone rings. I answer it, and it was this elderly man from India, right? So he had a real strong accent. And he says, hello, you rent my apartment. You come see my apartment. And I'm like, yeah, excuse me, what are you saying? Couldn't understand. You come to my apartment. You call me in my apartment. And I remember I leaving a voicemail, several voicemails to everybody, right? I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go see it. And what's your address? And he tells me, Smiley Drive off of Sentinel in Washington, which is only like 4 blocks away from where we're at. And I said, okay, we'll be there in a few minutes. So we drove over there, and it was this cool apartment, you know, Culver City apartments, right? This apartment building. And we get there, and there was only 4, and it was this elderly Indian man, and then his son Mel. And the son was, he was in his 40s. So they're walking around all hardcore businessmen, right? They have the hands behind their back, and you come to the apartment up here. Okay, so we go up there, and I look at 2-bedroom apartment, nothing fancy, tiny kitchen, but it was a 2-bedroom apartment, right? That's all we needed. Tiny bathroom, and I looked at them and said, hey, this is great, and they had a little table. We sat at the table. And then the guy, the son, right, the older man is just there like big and bad. And the son, though, he's like, okay, I need, here's the application. I need a credit report. I need a first deposit, last deposit, 2 deposits, first and last, and then rent and all this. And it was like over 36. The place was renting for like 1,600, so they wanted close to 4,200, something like that. And I looked at him, and I didn't know where you're working at, sources of income, the whole thing. I looked at him and I said, look, and I pulled out my cash. All I had was like $1,640, something like that, some change. I pulled it all out. Maybe it was like $1,700, but I pulled everything out. And I told him, I said, look, I'm going to tell you who I am. I said, I'm a pastor. I'm a pastor in Sacramento, my wife and I. And we really feel like God was calling us to Hollywood. And I don't have a job. I don't have any sources of income right now. But if you rent me this apartment, I promise you that the rent will be paid. And I said, but this is all I have. And I put the cash on like that. And he saw it. And I told him like 1,600 and change, right? And he looked at me, and I remember the older man, he got mad. He just turned his face like that. He totally just turned his back on us, right? And like he's ticked, like get out of my place, right? And his body language was heavy. And then Mel looks at the change. He looks at the cash, and then he looks at me. And he says, I go to the temple. Culver City, they have a Hindu temple. I go to the temple 2-3 times a day, and I pray every day. And you're coming. No, he says, I know God. And you're telling me that God called you to Hollywood and God wants you to rent my apartment? How am I supposed to argue with God? and he grabbed the money, threw the key down, pay the rent every month. They walked out. They were so mad. And we're like, they slammed the door, and we're like, they had the keys there. I didn't fill out no application, nothing. And my daughter goes, what just happened? I said, I think we got an apartment. And so that started it, you know. So now we live in Hollywood, and now I have to figure out what I'm going to do, you know. And it's like, okay, here we are.
That's a beautiful story, yeah. So what then? What happens? What happens after that?
So now there it was. I remember waking up the next morning. I'm like, okay, now what?
You call your brother, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah. Dave, we're good, bro. Yeah. Right away, we're like, okay. So I let my siblings know, my mom know. Híjole, my mom. Híjole, she's a freaking hardcore mom. You know, she makes you rest in peace, but she was a chingona mom. And I said, hey, mom, I'm good. Oh, what? What are you doing? You know, but you're in Hollywood. But she was a big supporter. And so I let everyone know, hey, we got an apartment. You know, and they're so everybody's happy, right? We slept on the floor that night. We just had our clothes from our suitcases, and we just slept on the floor. And like, I gave them all my money, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, we don't have food or nothing, right? But I gave them everything. But then, you know, like I said, my mom just, okay, I'm gonna send you some money, right? And back then there was no Cash App or Zelle. There was like Western Union. So she's like, hey, I gotta go to Western Union, you know. So it was drama. But we were able to get through. I woke up in the morning. I remember walking up to Sony Studios. I circled it. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? I don't know nothing about this industry. I don't know anything about movies, or I just know that little bit because I was an actor in the San Francisco market. That's it. So my mind's like, okay, let's get focused here. Let's start, you know, trying to figure out how to get into this thing. You know, this is what we're supposed to do. So, you know, the other thing too was there was no jobs. There was no Uber, no Lyft, no DoorDash, nothing back then. It was, if you want to get a job, you're going to go beginning job, like trying to sell insurance or something like that. You know, there was all that. It wasn't like it is now. You can just do gig economy. So I'm trying to figure out how to make money to feed my family, pay the rent. I jumped into acting, and we, you know, it was. I remember the process of auditioning. Remember in San Francisco, I'd go and then there's 5 guys that look at me, and I would usually land it, or if I didn't, but I would land it. Now there's 150 guys that look like me, so, and a lot of them had way more experience. And I'm walking into auditions, and I would see all these guys. I'm like, yeah, 6'2", you know, 350 pounds. They look like me. Or the auditions, because I put myself as a Latino, I don't look like your typical Latino, you know. I'm not, you know, I'm lighter skinned in my eyes, and, you know, so I don't look, when they say Hispanic, Hollywood has this stereotype. And they don't know that there's a lot of us, right? There's blondes, there's, you know, there's everyone, you know, they're darker skin, all that stuff, but they wanted the indigenous looking, or the cholo looking, right? I didn't fit none of that. So it was a tougher fight. San Francisco was a lot easier to get some jobs. So, but I got into acting, and I signed up for Central Casting, so I'm doing background work. I was playing Italians a lot, believe it or not.
Okay, if we can make a parenthesis, how did that make you feel, though? Because I think it ties up with your mission.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, I tell people, I was raised in San Jose, right? When I was raised, there's puro raza. You know, I was just raised with raza all over the place. Mexican Americans, Chicanos, I was just right. San Jose has a part that was all white, right? The Willow Glen site. So back when they desegregated with the busing for students, as a child, or junior high, I went from elementary school of all Latinos to a junior high called Markham, which was all white people. That's when I first experienced racism. I'm not busting everybody that's white, but there was a couple stoners there, right? So these are stoners. And they called me a spick, which I'm like, I'm not a spick, I'm a beaner. But a spick is Puerto Rican, right? So they called me. It was after a class, wood shop class. I remember they called me. They threw me against the wall. They called me a spick, because I don't blame them. All of a sudden, all these Mexicanos are coming to their school. We took over their school, and, you know, it was you know, probably hard for them too. But they threw me against the wall. They called me a spick. And I remember that particular time that they did it. My older brother was there too. I was a 7th grader. He was a 9th grader, and him and his cholo friends showed up, and they got to a big old, you know, pleitos right there, right? A big rumble, big fight, and I was freaking out. I'm in 7th grade, man. You're talking a couple months ago. I'm playing recess. I'm playing tetherball, you know, in whatever, basketball on the elementary school. Now I'm in this racial thing, right? So you once you feel it, once you know someone is judging you by your skin color, you always know. Fast forward, I'm in Hollywood now, and when they realize you're raza, it's a different ballgame, you know. They put you in this mental box that they have. They have ideas already for you. You know, in Hollywood, we're storytellers, right? If I was writing a story and I'm going to put a stoner in there, right? I'm not going to put a Mexicano. I'm going to put a white dude with long hair and a puffy jacket and boots, right? Because that's what my experience was. So a lot of these writers in Hollywood that write content or casting, and it says Hispanic, right away, this mental image comes in their minds and they try to fill that to get the story out. So when they're bringing you in to cast you, they're looking for Hispanics, they're looking for that. They typecast you immediately. And it does, you feel the discrimination. Is it intentional? It's not the KKK. It's just, they have us in a box, and it takes a lot of effort. And when I say they, I'm not blaming any particular race, but they have us in a box, and it takes a lot of effort for them to look at us as equals. They have to push past their nanny that was a Mexicana. They have to push past their gardener that was a Mexicano. You know, they have to push past the bully in school at Hollywood High School that was a cholo that beat him up. You know what I'm saying? They have to push past all that to be able to look at us as equals, because it's just this human thing that when you see a certain race, you're going to go through these filters of whatever experience you've had with that race. So they're looking at you and you're black, they go through these filters, and that's just their personal experiences, but the movies they watch. You know, if they look at three Mexicanos walking in, and they look Mexicano or Chicano, right? Three Chicanos walking in, right away they're thinking, oh, they saw Blood In, Blood Out, they saw American Me, you know, they saw Mi Vida Loca. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are gang members. They have no idea. They're not gang members. They're techie guys from the Silicon Valley, and they're way richer and smarter than you. but they have the stereotype, and we always have to push past that, because Hollywood has written us in those. Now, I always say I still love a good cholo movie. I love a good, you know, homie movie, man. Especially if they're comedy. I just wrote one. It should be coming out this fall, right? So I love those kind of movies. And I'll never, you know, change that, because you know, I tell this all the time. A lot of Latinos, and this is where I'm Chicano. A lot of Latinos say we need to change the narrative. We need to change how Hollywood sees us. And I get it. But what they're saying is, because they're not Chicano, they're saying we need to change your stories, our stories. Because my mom was a cannery worker, then she was a bus driver. My family were migrant workers. They were gang members and all that. So when another Latino, like especially from the East Coast or something like that, when they say, we need to change the narrative, they're talking about my narrative. So I get what they're saying, but I'm like, I want to own the narrative. I don't want to change it. I want to own it. I want to write our characters, our stories with layers. Like, why did they get violent in that? Why did they do that? What drove them to become a CEO in a tech company? What drove them to become a politician? What were the layers behind it? So I'm more about, let's own the narrative and let's tell the truth. Like I said, my Nino was a battalion chief. He pushed through a lot of racism in San Jose to get to the top, and then they wanted him to even go further, but he's like, nah, I'm good, I'm retired. And that guy lives a beautiful life. He's been retired. He's an amazing man, and he does very well for himself in retirement, right? So, but then I have that story with all the layers that he has, and I also have my little brother's story, who was a gang member. He was a gang member, and he did some bad things, and he became a lifer, and he did 23 years in prison. Tatted up. It's funny. He's a smart guy too, because he didn't get any tats past his elbows. But if you get him taking off his shirt, it's all over the place. And right away in the wrong neighborhood, it can be bad. But now he's a businessman. Now he's a 6-figure plus businessman. He owns his own big crane, so he goes to construction jobs and pulls all their big stuff on the roofs and all that. So and he lives in a beautiful home in Southern California. No way you could tell he was a prisoner, because he had other layers in his life that finally came out. and he was able to pull the bad ones off in prison. He learned, he grew. He's like, "God, this ain't me." He pulled the bad layers out, and then he became this businessman that he is now. So yeah, we're gonna face discrimination. I felt it in Hollywood, and it's still happening now. It hasn't changed. They're still gonna write our stories and write us as these bad people because, like I said, my theory is that these writers, if they're in the story or trying to write a bully. And if that writer went to Hollywood High and he got bullied by cholos, he's going to write a cholo as a bully, right? Or if he was walking through South Central and he got beat up by some blacks, he's going to write the story as a black gang member beat him up, however it was. So writers write from their own experiences, and that's what happens. So the only way that we're going to truly own the narrative is that we become writers. That's why, to me, writing is the most important job. Because we are cultural architects. We write the future. We write how we write, and what that becomes the movie or the story or the TV show. That designs the future. The kids see that, and if it's a great character, they love it. If it's a comedy, they laugh at the jokes, and they're like, "I want us to aspire to be that guy." If it's something about music, I want to play like that guy. So they see it. So. However, the stories are written when they recognize each other. If they see a brown guy as a gang member, and he's a fun gang member, and it's an actor. I always laugh at the guy that played Spooky on My Block and Netflix. When I see his podcast, he's like, he wasn't a cholo. He's an amazing actor because he played Spooky and he did a great job. So he's an actor. But people, if you don't know that, you see Spooky on My Block, you're like, oh, and kids saw that. They're like, oh, I want to be like Spooky because he's cool, he's bad, and they aspire to do that. Now, I'm still down. On My Block is an amazing show, so I'm still down. But that's just the point I'm making. So we as writers as well, we got to understand the responsibility. We have to write the future. That's what we're doing. So when it's produced, people see it. They know like they can aspire to be that. So that's why we have to write a Latino president. We have to write a Latino business people, Latina DPs. I know how we write our Latinas. I was on a Zoom the other day with some national national leaders in the industry, all Latino, and two of us made the comment saying, "Bro, guys, we're the only guys here. There's no women. We have to change this." So we have to create opportunities for women, and it starts with how they're perceived in visual content. How are they seen? So we need to show women as chingonas. My mom was a chingona, right? And she was heavy, and she was as she grew, like I said, she worked at a cannery, the bus, but she invested in real estate. So she retired as a millionaire. Freaking chingona. But man, she slapped the heck out of me. She would get mad at us. But yeah, so racism is a thing, but it's something that we can conquer, and we are conquering.
Yeah. So I know what a Chicano is. The first film I shot over 22 years ago was in Norwalk, and the title was Barrio Nowhere, and the protagonist reminds me of you. Actually, he's a dreamer. He was just essentially dodging bullets in his barrio.
Oh, dude. I've had guns at my head.
That's when I saw guns for the first time.
Oh.
But if you will mind, for my audience, what are the defining principles of a Chicano?
Oh yeah. So now we have Chicano Hollywood now, and a lot of people, when I first launched this, the older generation, and I'm talking way old, like my grandfather, he taught me Chicano power. That's where it comes from, my abuelito. He says, he had a patch and he gave it to me. I wish I would have kept it. I was thinking, but he always had Chicano power. And what happened was back then, now there's going to be historians that might say, nah, you're wrong, but that's fine. This is my story. I'll tell it. Back then, there was the United Farm Workers movement. There were people from Mexico, Mexicanos that were already here, and they started having kids. They were working in the farms. Cesar Chavez was organizing them, right? So there was the big movement, the Chicano movement. Some people say that Chicano comes from a derogatory term. It was a derogatory term back then. It's like, eres tu Chicano, eres Chicano. It's like saying the N-word, right? It's just like that. So the definition of it, it's Mexican, it's people like me. born in America. I'm an American, but I'm from Mexican descent. Chicano Hollywood is Mexican voice because in our network, our community of Chicano filmmakers, I got El Salvadorian, I have Guatemalan, Nicaraguan. These are all colleagues of mine, right? And we're all Chicano voice. So the modern definition, the older definition is derogatory in a sense where like Mexico, like I think Edward James almost said it the best in this movie Selena. The Mexicans, we're not Mexican enough for them, and we're not American enough for the white people, right? We're this group. This marginalized little group, though, has now blown up to be I don't even call it a subculture, but yeah, it would be a subculture, but we're a culture within ourselves. We have 3.4 trillion buying power. We have a bigger financial flow within us. I want to use the word ecosystem, but it hasn't really been established. We have a bigger economic power than France. So think about that. So within our Chicano community, Mexican-American community, we have that much financial power. The problem is it's just being colonized out, to say those terms, right? It's being siphoned out by other companies, right? And they're pulling it out, which is, that's happening. But Chicano Hollywood, we represent the Chicano voice, Chicano 2.0, where we're content creators. And what are the things we have in common? We're a mixed group. There's some that are like straight up Cholito homies, right? They're filmmakers, amazing. I work with amazing homies and homegirls that they're actors, they're actresses, they're filmmakers. And then I also there's another group that's super professional, and they are real estate agents, brokers, investors, tech. Tech's a big thing. So it's a big group. So the original definition, Mexican American. Derogatory term back in its history. Today, what my grandfather taught me was Chicano power. Today, we are an economic powerhouse. Our goal at Chicano Hollywood is to put the pieces together and create an economic ecosystem based on entertainment. We want to, one of our mottos is that we want to represent the Chicano voice in every space of culture. And I tell people that our voice is only going to get louder when there's more of us. That's why I'm here in Vegas now. There's got to be more of us. That's why I'm going to Dallas. That's why I'm going to Houston, Chicago. There's got to be more of us. So we're building our voice up by encouraging filmmakers, content creators, writers, producers, and it's coming out great. I had a couple guys in our meeting in San Diego last week. They're young business guys, right? They know digital marketing. They know business. So they came to me after our event. They said, hey, we want to get into the entertainment business, but we don't know anything about it. I said, dude, neither did I was a pastor. But I explained to them what as project management as a producer in Hollywood. I said, just learn the terms. That's all you got to do. So we're helping people that have always had this thing inside of them, but they didn't know how to get there. I love training people that are my age, late 40s up to I'm 57, so 60, 65, that and I don't matter the age, but where they have they became young parents, they had to go to work, they're working at the warehouse, truck driving, whatever. They took care of their family, they paid their bills. Now their kids are grown up, now they're grandparents, and they're like, man, I've always wanted to get into Hollywood. I've always wanted to be an actor. I love training those guys or directing them in a way where, hey, take acting classes from this guy, take acting, or learn how to produce this way, and they're actually bringing that life experience into the set. It's amazing, So Chicano, what's our definition? My definition: we are a powerhouse. Chicano power.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, everything you're saying makes so much sense to me. Because, just take control. Let's start representing this culture the way it should be.
The way it should be,
from another person's point of view, or
Oh, they have their ideas.
Yep. So
I don't blame them though, because we've done some bad things.
No. So let's move on to another. So let's move on to your mission. What did I have? I have so many questions, and you're a great storyteller, by the way. Yes.
Fix movies, huh?
Yeah. No, I want to interrupt that, but I've learned that I shouldn't interrupt.
Oh. That's conversation.
But no, yes. So, Chicano, I've heard you, Johnny, I've heard you say that there is a Chicano renaissance right now going on. Can you tell me more?
Yeah. So like I tell people all the time that we are in. A couple years ago, I said we were in the beginning of the Chicano Renaissance, but now we're like, it's on. Now, if you remember historically, when the Renaissance period happened, no one knew at the time what was happening. We look back, hindsight, and say, oh, that was a certain time in history when everything changed, when people were elevated in their ideas and their thoughts and art and philosophies and so on. So right now, because of that history with the world Renaissance, we're able to recognize the signs, and I see the signs where we're in the beginning of a Chicano Renaissance. Now, if you look at it this way, there's 62 million Latinos in the U.S. Out of those 62 million, 40 plus million are from Mexican American descent, like me. Then there's another like 10 million that are Chicano voice, El Salvadorian, Guatemalan, Colombian. They're Chicano. They're raised in the same barrios, right? Lowriders, taco stands, all that stuff, right? Gangs, but they're the same voice, right? So Chicano. So we have 40 to 50 million of our population in the U.S. that have that big economic power, and opportunities have come that people are taking advantage of. Filmmakers like us, writers, directors, and then that's part of the art world. But then there's also growth in tech. 2 days ago, I'm in San Jose, and I'm meeting with a homie from the east side. Now, if you know San Jose, we're divided up our sides of town, right? So if you say I'm east sider, then I'm a west sider, right? So we know, right? The terms and language. So I'm meeting with a guy named Frank Carbajal, amazing guy, very, very tech guy, very advocate for Latino voice. He's an author, and he has a big movement over there, but within the tech industry, right? So him and I are talking, and I ask him, hey, do you know so-and-so? He goes, Jose Contreras? I said, yeah, you know him? Yeah, he's an East Sider. I said, East Sider? I thought he was from LA. He goes, no, he's an East Sider. I said, why don't I hit him up? So I hit him up, and these are professional men, right? And it's funny, because when we get the round, once the walls drop, right? We're just homies, right? So I emailed Jose, because they didn't have his number. I emailed him. I said, hey, brother. I said, I never met him. Hey, I'm in San Jose. I just hung out with Frank Carbajal. I said, are you available? Let's get some tacos. And I said, here's my number. Call me. He called me right away. So then I spend the next 2.5 hours with this Chicano guy from the east side, some gang affiliation as a child, prison time. And he had all the typical stereotype of elements in his life. But then something happened that he got into the tech industry, and he blew up. Now he has a big tech company. And we're having tacos at this taco stand off of Ray Street. And I'm looking at him, and he's telling me his growth. And I just confirm the Chicano Renaissance is here. From tech to Hollywood to social work, to dance. Look at music. Music was one of the things. You're talking like there are Latino artists that are at the top of the game, not just the top of Latino music, but all over. Right? You see white people listening to Spanish music. So when it comes to any types of art and business and architecture and politics, we are all over the place, and we're growing it. We're not going to be stopped. So our population, our subculture, has gotten to a tipping point where now, before we were this marginalized little group that was here because of migrant work and laborers, but now the kids been born and the grandkids are born, and now we're at the tipping point where we're going to blow up into every space of culture. My kids, they freak out on my childhood. I'll tell them stories once in a while. They're like, "What the heck? That was grandma." They laugh at it, and they're amazed at it, but they have no idea what it's like to be raised in a single parent home on food stamps, in the body. They have no idea. All they know is dad was a professional all his life. I was a pastor, but I also owned a construction company. I built out part of the Ritz-Carlton in Vail, Colorado. I built out half of the Macy's mall half of the mall in Chandler, Arizona, right? I mean so they know dad as a businessman. They know dad as this, I used to own a franchise out of Avis Car Rental. I had all these cars that I was renting, and I always driving brand new cars. So all they know is dad and mom are married for 35 years, and they sent us to college. And all my 3 kids have college degrees, and my son has a master's degree. My oldest daughter is in the music industry with her husband, and they work with all the main players, right? She used to be Britney Spears' assistant, and now they're blowing up in his music career and all that. And and my youngest daughter works with me. She has a degree in film. So the grandkids of the migrant workers and the great-grandkids of the migrant workers, that marginalized little community, now are at the tipping point where they're taking over industry. My son, he's a business consultant, and he consults players, NFL players, and big companies and so on. And he's amazing at what he does. He builds leaders. And dad's a leader, and he learned all that from me. And he's educated, way educated than I am now. He consults me. But my point is, the Chicano Renaissance is happening. If there's any Chicano out there right now that is saying, I'll never be anybody, it's because they're choosing not to. If they have ganas, if they have some risk in them, the cojones to go out there and say, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to become an actor, I'm going to get into technology, I'm going to get into media, whatever it might be, the opportunities are there. And what's beautiful about it is that there's someone in every industry that already looks like us. They're waiting. That's what I love about the past that I've crossed, is that I got people in the entertainment industry, Edward James Olmos, Mil Rivera, Luis Guzman, Lisa Vidal, all these other big Latino players, right? That the moment you come say, hey, help me mentor these people. Hey, will you speak on a panel? And I don't have money to pay them, right? And we're trying all that. And I can't guarantee you a fee. But if you're down, they're like, oh, don't worry about it. I want to do this. I want to go, because they want to pour down to the next generation. So there's every opportunity for anyone right now. If you want to get into the Chicano Renaissance and you want to grow in your field, it's there. You just have to do it. You just have to get out there and get to work. Don't be like this generation that just wants to get on their phones and do nothing. Now, some of those people are making millions of dollars because they're influencers, but even that is wide open. I love these Chicano Latino influencers that they do jokes, and they pretend like they're the abuela and all this kind of stuff. Those are hilarious. I always try to support them. I'll post them. I'll share their stories and all that kind of stuff, because I want them to grow. So the Chicano Renaissance is like the historical Renaissance. It's changing the way the world is going to look at us, Latinos, because we are now in every space of culture, and I want to really make sure that we're represented there.
Well, before I forget, congratulations, because I'm a father now, and it's easier said than done. So congratulations on your sons and daughters,
yeah.
Because
it'll get easier when you become a grandfather. I have 5 grandkids.
Oh,
so yeah, that's coming. That's coming when it comes.
But I think it's a very important message that you just gave us, which is how important it is, the father presence, the mother presence.
Yes.
Mi señora mexicana, and whenever marriage is not easy. And ella siempre me dice, ya te chingaste, cabrón. Aquí te quedas.
She is mexicana. Yeah. yeah.
So so I can vibe with that. All right, so let's talk about your project. It's a huge project. I would like to know how the idea came about. What is your mission? All the different things that you can find in your platform, and what is the biggest challenges for you now?
Yeah. So when we started Chicano Hollywood, the way it started, that's always the funniest story. After the pandemic, right? Pandemic is coming to an end. A buddy of mine, he's a producer. He echoes world. His name's Jeff Reyes. He he sends me an email. He says, hey, can you turn this into a script? Just a one-page, bunch of notes, handwritten notes, right? And I looked at it and I said, you know, because I love writing, but there's a difference between a writer and a produced writer, right? That's always the difference. And I said, dude, I will turn this into a script if you promise me that you'll produce it. And he goes, no, I promise. We got funding, you know, a little micro budget, but we got funding. We're going to produce it. I said, all right, cool. So I wrote it. It's called Horchata with Oat Milk. And it's a gentrification story, right? A homeboy gets out of prison after 20 years of being locked. In the 90s, it was because of the laws of the, you know, all the crime laws and all that were established in the 90s. A lot of Hispanics and blacks got put in prison for small stuff, right? But he gets out 20 years later. He goes to his old barrio. And, you know, everything's different now. It's all gentrified, right? The taco shop is now a cupcake shop. And, you know, all these hipsters live there. So he's trying to get the old gang back together, him and another guy. And so it's a funny comedy. It has some great comedians in there. Concrete, Jerry Garcia, Dunos, great actors, Anthony Fernandez, Alex. I mean, they're all great. So I wrote the script out, and we're doing a dialogue meeting, right? So I have the script projected on the wall. And there was just a couple of us there, and the director, he's looking at the script, and we're talking about how the different dialogue, because I wrote it from the guy from the 80s, right? I say words that the young guys don't say, so we have to just go through that. And he's smoking a joint, and he puffs this big old cloud of smoke in front of the script. And I said, wow, that's cool, do it again, do it again. And I don't smoke weed or like that, but I thought it was funny. I said, do it again. So I made him do it like 6 or 7 times. I finally got the shot. And I sent that picture to my daughter, who was a senior at Azusa Film School. And I said, check this out. I'm with Chicano Hollywood. That's all it was. Script, professional filmmakers, and a joint. So that's where it came from. And she laughed. She was, Chicano Hollywood, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. So I nicknamed that production. Within a month, we were in production, right? So now, March 2021, we're producing this movie. Late February, March. And we nicknamed that group Chicano Hollywood. I tell my wife, hey, I'm got to meet with Chicano Hollywood. Hey, I'm on set with Chicano Hollywood. It's just a joke. But I had Chicanos in front of the camera, Chicanos behind the camera, right? And then, again, Chicano voice, because they were Guatemalan, they were Salvadorian. The main producer, Jeff Reyes, he's a close buddy of mine. I think he's El Salvadorian, right? But Chicano voice. And we're producing a movie, and, you know, I saw how it connected, you know. And so they loved it. They'd high five each other. We're Chicano Hollywood. We're Chicano Hollywood. And I remember on March 11th, the makeup lady, she's doing amazing things now, wardrobe and all that. And she pulls up with hoodies, and it said real big Chicano Hollywood and real small Horchata with Oat Milk. Right there, I saw it, and I said, "There's something here." So that night, I got the socials, and I started the trademark. And it took me a while to get the trademark, but I got it. Very expensive, but I got it. And I started socials. And that's how it grew. All I would do was just give them what's called a shout out, right? If someone was doing something and they started following, I would shout them out. I would just, I followed people that I knew, and I would, hey, look at so-and-so, they did this. They wrote this movie, they did this music video, they're on makeup, they're PA, they're grip. I just shout them out. And then it started growing organically, just grow. So from March 11th to August, my daughter says, do you see how many people you have on Chicano Hollywood IG now? It's like 2,500. I said, oh, that's cool. And I said, let me check Facebook, because I never checked Facebook, but I connected them. I go to Facebook, there's like 12,000. I'm like, oh my God, how 12,000? What the heck is this? And I had no idea. And I read, man, there's something here. So I started noticing, and this was something that we all recognized, but it wasn't, we couldn't articulate it, but we knew that guys like me that were producing Chicano voice content or pitching it to the man, we were never getting greenlit. And the main reason was the gatekeepers some of them were Latino too. They were all looking for what's called the Latinx voice. Latinx, is it Latinx? And Latinx has a different voice. I respect it, but it's not my voice.
Can you before you continue, what's Latinx?
So Latinx is a more progressive type of Latino voice. A lot of people in our bubble in LA, it's like an identifier for Latino content, right? For the most part, Latinos across the nation don't even know what it means, right? But I think it was like 2% of Latinos even connect with that voice. But it was a Hollywood voice, right? It's a Hollywood type of content. Again, they wanted to change the narrative, all that kind of stuff. They didn't want, Chicano type of stuff. Like, no, that's not. So, but that's all we knew. Those are the stories we're going to tell. So, and I have a lot of respect for that voice, but it wasn't mine. I worked for that voice, right? I worked for companies, and that's the stuff I would create for them as a producer. So I know the voice real well, but it just wasn't my voice, right? Like, I would never do that type of story or anything like that. But they were the gatekeepers, and because of that, me and my colleagues were never getting greenlit. We're pitching and never getting greenlit from the man, right? Because it didn't pass the litmus test of what they wanted to see. So, and this is what they thought that Latinos wanted, right? I literally had some execs from Paramount, execs from Warner Brothers all tell me, you figured it out. We're not that smart yet. We think all you guys want is a Latinx or Univision. But you figured out the Mexican-American English speaking. I said, yeah, it's not just Mexican-American, but there's all of us. And they told me this, both of them in different ways warned me, you better hurry, put this pedal down, because once this gets out, people are going to realize that's the way to go. And it's true, because like a lot of the Latinx type of shows, they get canceled. And then Latinos, we complain. Like, oh, they canceled this show, they canceled that show. And the reason why is that they're doing it in a Latinx type of voice that the majority that are Chicano or Chicano voice, we don't watch it. We'll try to watch a couple of episodes, but it's like, nah, this ain't us. And then you don't watch it. You don't want to watch it with your kids. You just don't want to watch it. You don't have it on. So all Hollywood sees is data. Netflix looks at data. They don't look at the show. They look at the data. Like, okay, right at this season started, we had this peak, and then, at the 4th episode, it dropped. Why? Well, because they introduced something in the narrative that most Latinos don't want to be a part of, or they're not ready to watch with the kids, or maybe they are. But either way, it wasn't connecting. And with the Mexican American, the Southwest, the West, the Tejano, the New Mexican, wasn't connecting. They were doing a lot of stuff with the East Coast, and God bless all my East Coast homies, because I have a lot of them over there, but they know what I'm talking about,
But the difference now, what's the difference? Because you, in your platform, Chicano Hollywood, you also have, I think I heard you say Chicano Netflix.
Yeah.
You have your own streaming.
So as this evolved, as Chicano Hollywood was growing and evolving, because we were never greenlit, I thought, okay, what do we have to do to elevate our whole community, right? So I think I just saw an ad, own your own streaming app, right? So I'm like, okay, how do you do that? So I just started researching, how do I own my own streaming app? And I found a company, and I was affordable, and I had to bring in a financial partner too, and we built it out. So we built our own Chicano Hollywood TV. You can go to all of the platforms and put in Chicano Hollywood. You're going to see a black logo with Chicano Hollywood TV. And the reason I built that was because I wanted our filmmakers, they're making short films, they're making feature films, they're not getting picked up, they're not getting distribution, so all they do is like, okay, I'll stick it on YouTube. So I'm like, man, let's take it off of YouTube, let's put it on a streaming app. That way, as you grow, you can tell your investors, my other movies are on a streaming app. So I did that so that we can showcase stuff on a streaming app, not just a generic open to the public YouTube or Vimeo, right? So I did it to elevate all of us. So we built this out, and now, I mean, we've got like, movies, TV shows, podcasts. We have series on there. Right now, we're doing originals. So I put I have a couple of originals on there. Musica, which is like an MTV with Chicano music videos and video jockeys, just like the old MTV style. We're gonna do another episode of that this summer. And then I have Chicano 2.0, which is with Jessica Flores. She's interviewing different artists, music artists, and then we show their music video. And then I have the Calypso Show. The Calypso Show was like a Drew Barrymore, but it's with Calypso Aranda. She's like a Chicana, and she's interviewing people. So we have 9 episodes of that. So that one, I just signed a distribution deal on that one, so it's on our platform. And once I get all the episodes on our platform, then I'm like, hey, anybody else want it? So I just signed the distribution on that, so we're gonna get that out to a lot of other platforms. And then it's showing on Cox Cable in Phoenix. So, and then on Latino USA, we have it on that one too. So it's getting distribution. The whole thing is, I'm like, hey, let's take it out there. Well, I want to make money off it, obviously, but it's mainly about getting the brand out and getting our voice out. So we are really, being as aggressive as possible to decentralize the whole distribution thing. Because if the way the traditional models are now, our gente never have opportunities. It's just, they're not going to look at us. So we got to take care of it ourselves. So Chicano Hollywood is all about, it's not intentionally a disruptor. I'm not like saying, oh, screw the man, It's more like, okay, you don't want to invite us into your party, we're going to have our own party. Right? And so that's fine. We don't. There's Brandon Maxwell, is a Chicano guy. He's half Irish, but he's raised in the hood, right? He's like a Miko from Blood and Blood Out. But he has the Daily Chela, which is a news outlet. He loves news, commentary news, loves politics, all that. But Brandon has a saying, it's a good friend of mine. He says, I would rather build my own castle than knock at the door of someone that won't let me in. And I'm like, that's it right there. I said, I'm just not going to knock on those doors anymore. I'm going to just build. So I want to build all of us. That's why we're here in Vegas right now, because there's filmmakers here that I want them to know, hey, you're not alone. What do you need? How can we help? I'll bring training. I'll bring people from LA in, and maybe you don't, there's somebody who will say, well, I don't need you. That's cool. But who does? And who's those young kids? And who are those older, adults that always want to do this? How can we get you into your bucket list or to your dream of doing this? And, it's not an easy road. Not everyone becomes wealthy in this. It's a job. You got to work. It's a hustle. It's a grind. But if it's in them, I want to create every opportunity to be a bridge, So that's why we're going to Dallas. That's why we're going to Chicago, Houston, all these other towns, because we're expanding we're bringing Hollywood to them so that they can fulfill their purpose and their calling just like I am,
Yeah, it's positive all around. And again, I've experienced it myself. Why is there a white person writing about a black person? Who better to write about the Latin community than a Latin person?
Yeah.
And by doing that, you also create opportunities. It's a win-win everywhere.
Yeah.
So what are your biggest challenges right now?
The biggest challenge for 2024, I remember I spent 2 years building the foundation because I didn't know where it was going to go. So what we have now, we started with the streaming app, right? We started with mixers. Let's all get together in Hollywood and let's know each other. Once I started doing that, people they always tell me, I am working now with these people because I met them at your networking event, right? So we started with that. Then we launched the streaming app. So now we're training people because okay, we want more content. So we have the streaming app, Chicano Hollywood TV, and then we went into training because we need more writers, we need more directors. So let's get some that we know and start training. So we did a whole series of master classes that people can get on and learn, right? And from makeup to grip to PA to directing, we're doing that. And I'm going to be doing some more, like how to produce a commercial, all that stuff. And then I noticed this one thing too. Even with all of that, there's an actor, and I won't say his name because I said it last time too. I don't want to get him all. He's an amazing actor. He has done some stuff with Adam Sandler and all that, so he's getting his out there, right? But there's no reason why he should not be an A-lister, other than the system is not designed for people to easily access it. There's a whole, if you really dig deep, it's a heavy thing to become an A-lister, right? To get to that point. And I'm like, how do we help our gente get to that next level? And a lot of it's media. So I launched Chicano Hollywood magazine. It took us a freaking year to get that thing going. It's been a pain. But it should be done this week. Finally, this week. Amazing. And the reason I created that was because of actors like this one particular actor, where I thought, this guy needs to be an A-lister. How do we do that? Well, then I start thinking, well, when Hollywood does a push, a market or a publishing push, they call media outlets, and they make a big deal about them. And then they get them interviews and all that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to create that same system. So I'm going to train paparazzi, right? And people that know how to run a camera, and they all know how to do it. So I'm going to train them how to go out there and do red carpets and all that. So I have a few now, but I'm going to do training for that. And then I'm going to have our magazine, where the magazine, we could actually create our own A-listers, because we have our, with our massive distribution, we put someone on the front cover, they're going to be like, oh, who's this guy? And then we show, well, they're in this show now that we produce, they're in these commercials that we produce, and we just get them within our community, within our 40 to 50 million, they recognize. I don't care if anyone else doesn't recognize them, but within our 40, 50 million, they're going to become a household name. And that's what my goal is with the magazine, with our ecosystem, connecting all the dots, because we can elevate our own people that way. So the rule for the magazine is on the front cover is going to be someone that we're highlighting. Or right now, these first issues, the front covers. The first one right now is Mario Lopez, and Mario's a homie, right? He's a supporter of what we do. His team, Dave is one of us, you know. So I asked Dave. He said, "Bro, you think Mario will be down for doing the magazine cover?" And he's like, "Yeah." So we went to his office, and really a great guy. So he's on the front cover. And we've got talks going on with Evan Longoria and then others that we're going to do the front cover. The inside of the magazine is going to be all of us. Who's on the come up? Who's rising up? Who's doing what? So that when they open that magazine, they'll be able to see, like, okay, this is a raza that's climbing, and we're going to highlight people like that. So we're going to create our own, ecosystem so we can build our own A-listers. So they have the magazine. We have after we did a big training last year with Coyote Studios, November 9th. This is what happened with that. I had my big conference. It's called Elevate the Latino Voice. I had like 500 people show up. It was all about panels and keynotes, all Latinos. Edward James Olmos, Louis, all these guys were just sharing, right? I was on a job at the time. Remember, I'm a line producer, right? So actually, I was PMing a job. It was a big commercial job. So I was going nuts because I was like busy. I told them, I said, I have my conference. I can't work these 2 days, but I was still working. But immediately after my conference ended, the next day we're in a final pre-pro meeting, and then we were producing. I was hiring, putting people through the hiring system, and I would see resumes. I'm like, man, they don't have the experience for this. So I say, hey guys, there's no experience here. I said, let me bring someone in. They didn't let me bring our people in. Out of the 60 crew, I was only able to bring in 3 of us because I pushed. Because especially the sound guy, the one they hired, failed. In the middle of the day, they're saying, who do you got? So I call my boy Roman. Hey, bro, you ready? I need you right away. And we did a switch out. So then they started realizing we should have got your guys, right? So they didn't want to bring my raza in. I knew it. And I'm like, what the heck, man? This is just last year. It was an 8-week job. A week into it, I called Andres Prieto at Quiotes, and I said, hey, bro, I'm dreaming about something. He goes, what are you dreaming about? I said, I'm dreaming about training 100 of us before the end of the year. This is September 2023. And he goes, all right, let's do it, bro. Let's do it. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So then while I'm on that job, we're planning. And I'm thinking, okay, let me get 100 people at Kyoto Studios, and we'll just train them how to be a PA, how to be a grip, how to be a gapper, how to, stuff that they can get some hands-on and make some money. And the thing blew up. I mean, that day, we had 200 people show up. I had Abe Martinez, he's a homie of mine. He's a DP, he just came off of Cobra Kai. We had Joey Medina, award-winning director, one of the Latin Kings. We had Veronica, she was a line producer, So we had all these classes going, 200 raza there. We had Ken Munoz, who owns the Visions and Color, and he provided lunch for everybody. The raza came together. The vibe was so amazing. I was overwhelmed. We were all around. Kyoto Studios, they built out the set, and it was amazing. Had acting classes. I think it was Alex Alfaro did an acting class. I also used Charlie Boone. I mean, it was just amazing. And right after that end of the day, someone came up and says, hey, how do we find work now? I'm like, oh, it's a good question. Now, there are some platforms like Staff Me Up, and there's some platforms like Mandy and Fiverr and Upwork and all that. But our raza always kind of they never get work there, right? So I said, I'm going to create my own. So I said, okay, give me some time. So I created something called the Freelance Latino. So if you go online, thefreelancelatino.com, it's so that all of our freelancers can put a profile up, and then we're going to start marketing that so people can hire us. Kind of like an Angie's List or something like that. So I have the foundation set. It's all set. Right now we're building something so we can actually decentralize streaming too. It's all set. The biggest challenge is money. That's it. I need to hire me a CRO, which is a corporate revenue officer, right? Someone that's all they're focused on and how to monetize everything. But I have the spigots open there. Everything is making a couple bucks here. Pero no está, but it's monetizable. It is monetizing, but now it's just marketing. So right now I'm looking at marketing companies. I'm looking at revenue companies, and I'm like, okay, 2024, I got to scale this puppy up. I was in San Jose meeting with some people. I was on web Zoom with some investors, and it's just about scaling up. So my biggest challenge right now, because I have key talent, is money. And I know that's everyone's challenge, so I'm not going to pretend like it's my only one. Pero we are already, the spigots are open, un chorrito de agua, but all I need is the rest of the, we have 100,000 followers. All I need is 5 million of the 40 to 50 million. I say 5 million. I need a million. And the money comes in. And what that does for us, it gives us a fund to produce more content. That's what I want, We have merch. We have a support ChicanoHollywood.com, which is where you could buy T-shirts and stuff like that. So we have it all the infrastructure there. But I just need un ángel que se llega. Like, come on, God, send me that Indian guy again,
That was kind of my next question. I'll ask it anyway. So if you have fast forward, because I think it's just a matter of time. The numbers make sense. Everything makes sense. So if you have unlimited funds, what would you do? Where would you start?
So if I had unlimited funds, let's say the first phase is going to be marketing. Simultaneously would be producing original content, but marketing to build our numbers up, our social media to build that up, because that's where a lot of the marketing is, right? So I would pour money into marketing, primarily that, and then every venture that we have, from the Freelance Latino to the magazine to the master classes, we would support those, but they don't need that much, but because it's just once the un poco de gasolina, then it's just going to go on its own, right? So it'll just go on its own. So you have a sales team, stuff like that, right? So I would put in some key sales people, and I would put in money into marketing, content creation. Some of my partners are like masters. They were head of content at BuzzFeed, head of content at Me Too, and Pero, like, these are all media companies that are very successful. Now they were with me, right? So I would empower everybody. Vamos, let's get this to work, right? And then once I get those juices going, phase 2 is going to be creating a film fund so that we can empower filmmakers and TV shows, right? And content creators. So I would, I dream about this, where I announced to our producers that, hey, you got invited to this private meeting because I have seen that you know what to do. You produce, I've seen some proof. They have to have some experience. Here's a private meeting. I could see 20, 30, 40, 50 people, 100 people, whatever would be great. Then I say, okay, I have this fund here. Let's get your pitches together. And they'd have to work for it, because, you can't just let them do some story just to get a couple bucks. No, they gotta. So what I would do, though, just like an incubator, I would put them through training. Like, okay, you're gonna have access to a fund, but for the next 3 months, you're gonna meet with so and so who's gonna teach you how to direct. So and so's gonna teach you how to produce. So and so's gonna teach you how to write. And then you're gonna, in that group, you're gonna network with people that you don't know. Maybe some writers have no idea they need to meet a director and all that. So we're gonna create that system. And then boom, okay, we're ready. Now, I'm not gonna, no escribir un cheque de $100 million for one movie. No. I know how to make a movie of $50,000. I can also make movies with $2.5 million, right? So I know how it's done. So if someone pitches me, and I'll train them how, don't pitch me a movie that the whole world comes to a collapse and we're living in another, I said, unless you can prove how we're gonna do that on a lower budget. But let me show you how to do it on horchata with oat milk, where it's a comedy, and we did that with a micro budget, So I'm gonna train them so that everyone takes baby steps. The goal is gonna be we get content, The goal would be to get that distributed. And the underneath goal is that I get Latino, Chicano filmmakers to the next level, where other studios are knocking on their door saying, hey, I want you to come over here. That's, to me, is beautiful. There's 2 homies of mine, they're brothers, they're called the Ortega brothers. And their Instagram is the Ortega Brothers Vision. And I love these guys. And when I went to their house and I sat with them, I said, this is what I'm going to do, guys. I'd love you to be a part of it. And I've seen their growth. They do amazing commercials. We have some of their commercials on our streaming app. All the Cholo ones, you'll see them. They've nailed the Chicano voice. All they need is a shot. So I can't wait till the day I could say, bro, here's $500,000. I know that script because I've read it several times. Let's do it. Or here's 250, bucks, 250,000. Because they also have this idea for a series. Bro, okay, there's 250,000. I'm going to give you 40,000 per episode, and let's do 8 episodes, whatever, you know. I mean, however we work it out. But I can't wait for the day that I got them just cranking stuff out, and then Amazon Prime comes and knocks on the Amazon Studios knocks on their door, say, hey, we want to sign you for a contract. You can't work with him no more. And I told them that, right? And they said, I said, that's what's going to happen. They looked at me and said, nah, bro, no, we got your back. I said, no. I want you to do that. I want you to go there, because 2 things, then you're going to grow and become gatekeepers, and you're going to let everybody else in. And the other thing is that if it all falls apart, I know I'll get work with you. So I'll always be your line producer. But I tell them, I want you to grow, because we need to get our raza up there in places. So I want Netflix to come and take my people. I'll train more. I didn't know nothing about this industry. And the only thing I haven't done yet is directed my own feature. I've directed commercials and stuff like that and shorts, but I haven't directed my own feature, so that's next. But I know enough, but I know nothing. So to me, it's like I can train people. I can get people up. But the ones that are here that are growing and that are amazing, I want them to go to Warner Brothers. I want them to go to the studio level, you know, because the ultimate goal is to elevate everybody, you know.
So what do you think? It took so long for this movement to happen, or for someone. Like
yeah, you know what's interesting too, the timing. I couldn't have done this when I first got here because I didn't know nothing. I just acting, right? And if you really know Hollywood, the actors, unless you're a big A-lister, the actors are the bottom of the totem pole, right? Right below a PA on set, right? Now, as they grow and they become A-listers, yeah, then they have a bit more power. But out of the hundreds of thousands of actors, they're all below the PA, right? So I was an actor. Then you start growing in the industry. I needed to have all the experience. I needed to produce a couple feature films. I needed to produce and work for companies like BuzzFeed, Snapchat, and Me Too and others. I needed to do that. So in my particular case, I won't say I can't speak for the whole world, but in my particular case, I had to be prepared. Like I said, everything to the Lord, right? So the Lord knew I had to learn these things, kind of like on Karate Kid. Wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off, right? And I'm over there freaking waxing on and waxing off, and I didn't know why until, boom, Chicano Hollywood came. So now I am able to consult people that had never done anything. I'm like, oh, and I lead people all the time. They want to be a writer because I write now. How did I learn to write? I taught myself. I read books, and I always tell people, this is what you got to do, and I get them on the right path. You know, produce. I produced because I learned on my own. I took 2 classes at UCLA on their extension program. One was on finance, and the other one was on production. And then, but I just had to stuff I learned as in my other careers, how to translate that into Hollywood. So it took this long, and the timing was right. I know the timing was divine, you know, divine led. But if it would have happened a year before, I wouldn't have been ready. If it would have happened a year after, maybe someone else would have done it. But it happened in 2021 because I feel that God sees our community and wants some justice for us, wants to elevate us, wants us to, the Renaissance changed the world. So I see the Latino community, not just Chicano, the Latino community is the answer for especially the United States. We have strong economic buying power. We have strong values. We're very family oriented. We're the last stance when it comes to the American culture. That's why I get pissed off at all these güeros get mad at the ones that are crossing the border. I mean, I get it. Yeah. If they're criminals and they're terrorists, yeah, I get it. But my grandfather crossed the border illegally. My dad crossed the border illegally, so we're good. You know, so the value that I see, people don't like when I say this, but if Raza made it across, let's get them to work. If any terrorists made it across, no, let's send them back. Any human trafficking, no, let's shut all that down. Pero si hay un hombre, una mujer que, you know, they cross the border and están aquí para trabajar and give some good to their families, I'm with them 1,000%. You know, so people don't always like my politics, but I'm with them 1,000% because that's what my family did, and I'm not going to be hypocritical. That's how we got here. So my migrant work, illegal documented migrant working grandfather. Now he did get his citizenship because he went to World War II. So he earned it. But he came across to get a better life for his family, and he did exactly that. That's why my family's, you know, blessed.
No, that is a big topic. That the one that also interests me a lot. Just as a side note, I always thought, I lived in LA for almost 23
Oh
years.
yeah, you saw. Yeah.
So I always said, wow, if all these guys, I'm talking about illegal immigrants, got together and said, I'm not going to do your garden, I'm not going to cook for you, I'm not going to do construction.
Yeah.
The country would be
Oh
flat.
my God. Yeah. Boom. My construction company I had like 70 paisas working for me, right? And we hired others, and man, they freaking work for a week, then they want to claim disability. But raza, paisas, man, they are there to work, and that's all they want. You pay them good. When you show up on the site with them and you feed them at the truck, they love you to death. I mean, we had multiple construction zones going on, so whenever me, Don Juan, El Jefe would show up, they knew that I was going to buy them lunch. They knew, that they get paid every Friday with a check, and some of them might even have to cash their checks. I did all that stuff. But I got, me and my partner, we got hired by big construction companies, and we got hired to do or got awarded contracts because our guys worked, and they weren't always looking for workman's comp. Our guys worked, and our raza works. So,
for the records, I know I've lived all over the world in many big cities. London, Madrid.
Yeah.
The first time I built I did a little deck.
Yeah.
But with stone. David was my gardener. And he put it all together, and that guy was like way over 50 years old. And he will carry these big stones on his shoulder by himself with a cigarette.
In his mouth, and he's a Popeye.
All day long. Like, this guy's...
There was a movie, it's a micro-budget independent movie, came out years ago, before I was into Hollywood. It was called A Day Without a Mexican. And the whole thing was the Mexicanos, and I don't remember the whole premise of the story, but Mexicanos said, we're not working no more. And it was a day without Mexicans. So the restaurants, the motels, the hotels, the construction, everything stopped, So people have to recognize that our raza is the answer to our American culture. Want to save America?
Yeah.
Get the raza in.
I'm going to check that film out. All right, so this has been such an amazing conversation, and also as part of the routine of the show, I always ask my guests to look at this camera and just give me the best advice you can possibly give.
Well, my whole journey in life, I'm 57. I don't hide that because I'm 57. But if I could give any one piece of advice, I would say give yourself permission to fail. Once you give yourself permission to fail, you can accomplish anything. I've had a lot of failures in my life, and they've held me back. They caused depression. They caused anxiety. But I had a revelation one day, and I really felt like God said, bro, give yourself permission to fail. The moment I did that, I'm not afraid of accomplishing anything. You get a risk, you get a strength. You're like, if everything fails, I give myself permission to fail. So once you do that, you're able to take on the whole world. So you want to live your dreams? Give yourself permission to fail.
Johnny Murillo, thank you so much for your presence. I'm honored. I think that you are the same angel that once came to you and didn't made you stay in Los Angeles for a reason. I think you are the angel for the Latin community that is doing the same that they did for you now. So thank you for your presence.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I'm excited. You have a beautiful set, bro. This probably been I won't say this out, don't put this out there, but this is probably the best looking podcast studio I've been in,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And thank you for the support.
Oh.
All right.